there's always a way to turn tragedy into a tool. No matter how tragic it is, there's always a way up. There's always a way forward.
Welcome to Hope Comes to Visit. I'm Danielle Elliott-Smith. I'm really grateful you're here. This is a place for real stories, for honest conversations, for moments of reflection, resilience, and light. Whether you're navigating something hard right now or you just need a soft place to land, we hope today's conversation will meet you exactly where you are. Today's guest is a poet. He's someone who considers himself to be a part-time introvert. He is a music producer. He is a social worker, and he's someone that I consider to be a friend. Now, I'm going to introduce you to him, but we're going to have to do some explaining. Let's take a quick moment to thank the people that support and sponsor the podcast. When life takes an unexpected turn, you deserve someone who will stand beside you. St. Louis attorney Chris Dully offers experienced one-on-one legal defense. Call 314-384-4000 or 314-DUI-HELP. Or you can visit dullylawfirm.com. That's DULLE lawfirm.com for a free consultation. I'm going to bring in right now. You are my friend. We're going to call you Oliver, and your stage name is Little Junior.
Yes.
So let's start by explaining the mask, and then we're going to get into a bit of your story and why we wanted you here on Hope Comes to Visit. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's talk about the mask a little bit.
No problem. So I make hip hop music, and one of my main inspirations is MF Doom. He passed away in 2020, but he was a legendary artist, just now really getting the recognition that he deserves. But he wore a mask. His reasons for wearing the mask was kind of a reintroduction to the industry. My reason for wearing the mask is to adopt a persona. It's kind of in line with West African culture. They have something called a griot. And griots normally wear a mask when they're presenting oral traditions and oral history. And the reason they do that is to separate themselves, the person, the husband, the father, the son, from the storyteller. Okay. The storyteller is always seen as like a sacred role. So you don't want to bring any of your personal traumas, your personal hangups into that role. So they do that as a way to distinguish themselves from the storyteller and the person. And that's the reason I do it as well. But it also has a grounded utility. Like you mentioned earlier, I'm a social worker. Mm-hmm. I don't want any of my clients to see any of my music videos or anything that I may do and kind of reconcile my identity as a social worker with my identity as an artist. So I kind of try to separate myself in that way as well. Okay. It's job protection.
No, I appreciate the job protection, but I'm interested about the storytelling piece because it seems to me that your experience as an individual, and we're going to talk a bit about who you are as an individual and how it informs your identity as an artist. So how do you separate that out? Because if you're separating yourself out as a storyteller, that's something you and I have in common, right? I'm proud to be a storyteller. I love stories. That gives me chills even to talk about it, right? So as a storyteller, doesn't the Oliver that I know, doesn't that inform your artistry?
It absolutely does. But the thing is, I don't want it to inform my artistry too much. I am a father and a husband and a son. And like you were just saying earlier, when you were listening to the music, you recognize the creativity and the poetry in it. But some of the content may not have been what you would expect from me because you know me in my personal life. And the same thing goes for like my kids. I don't want to have to think too much about what my daughter would think if she heard this particular song. I don't want to think too much about what my mom would think if they heard this particular song. Allen Ginsberg, one of my favorite poets, he wrote a poem called How, and he was trying to work on it for months and months. And he went to his friend, I think it was William Carlos Williams. He let him read it, and William told Allen, hey, this is trash. I think you can do a lot better. What's the problem? Okay. Allen Ginsberg told him, what the problem was. And William said, you know what? I think you should write this poem like your father will never read it. You'll write the poem as if you're the only person that's going to lay eyes on it. And then after he wrote from that perspective, it allowed that creativity to just pour out of Al. He was able to write what he really wanted to write. And that always stuck with me. Like, write and create as if nobody is going to see what you're creating. That way you don't have any shame or embarrassment, you know?
That's beautiful. And what's interesting too is, so I'm looking at you through a different lens than I normally do, right? And the conversations you and I have had in the past have always been so stock full of wisdom anyway. I always leave you feeling fresh and inspired and stronger, which is how I'd love to leave everyone that I'm talking to, right? But the mask is dazzling, in a way, right? But in a beautiful way. And I think that in many ways it can represent the myriad pieces of you, right? Because what you see is not what you get at all times. And I think there's something really magical about that. So one of the things I want to talk about that I find so hope-filled in your journey, right? When we think about someone who produces music, who writes and sings, and we think about how important our senses are. And you have overcome a hearing disability.
Yeah, essentially.
Can we talk about that?
Absolutely.
So what does that look like? Because the first time you told me that, I thought, wait a second. So how does one do the heart work, the artistry that you do without having full capacity of your hearing?
Right. So to backtrack a little bit, so I have what you call tinnitus. Some people pronounce it tinnitus. And what it is a constant ringing in the ears. And, you know, normally when I explain that to people, they take it really casually, right? But just imagine a lawnmower to your far left that never ceases. And you're walking around with it, you wake up with it, you go to sleep with it, you shower with it, you eat with it, and it's there incessantly, forever. I got that condition when I was 20 years old, 2013, and it really came from loving music so much, but not understanding the science behind it. I was working with low end bass, right? Trying to get the bass, because I work in hip hop, trying to get the bass to really shine through the mix, and had headphones. The bass was too loud and it caused nerve damage.
Wow.
And nerves heal very, very slowly. So when I was going to ENTs and neurologists and getting CAT scans, they were telling me, hey, this is a nerve issue. Nerves heal really slowly. The best thing we could tell you to do is just get used to it. And that was like a very frustrating time, you know, to go to the people that you're thinking is going to have some type of treatment or help. And they're basically telling you the help hasn't been invented yet. Wow. Medical science hasn't caught up to what you
need.
The good thing is that I love music so much, I decided that I was going to use this in a way. And I didn't know how I was going to use it, how I was going to be able to continue making music. And for about a year and a half, I didn't make anything. I didn't even want to listen to music. Side note, I also have, in addition to tinnitus, I have something called hyperacusis. And that comes from the way that I got tinnitus, the way that the nerves were damaged. I have a sensitivity to noise. So it's not just the incessant ringing in the ears. I also have a physical sensitivity to loud noises.
Really?
Yeah, and I missed out on kids' birthday parties, my kids' birthday parties, and not going to amusement parks. Different, you know, just because I was anxious about, you know, how's the noise level going to be? I can't control the noise level. I really began to self-isolate for years because I felt like a burden when I would go out to try to have a social life. Hey, guys, can you turn the music down? So I just stayed to myself, really. And really, that was just a response to the trauma of how I got it and trying to wrap my head around this is going to be here for the rest of my life. So it took me about 2-3 years to really accept it. And I found that once I accepted it, I kind of acclimated to it. Like I can sit up and talk about it without having any type of emotion about it. And really, I don't even notice the ringing anymore. And I worked out the sensitivity to noise in a way where I can continue to go to the studio. I can put headphones on and continue to make the music that I make. I just may not be able to have it as loud as I used to, but that's fine. You know, you probably shouldn't have it as loud as I had it anyway, you know, so.
Probably had to make some adjustments there anyway.
Definitely.
So what was it you think that helped you to navigate through both of those challenges? One is a physical challenge. One is mental and physical, right? So, and one requires you to sit with yourself and think, okay, how am I going to do this? And one is, can I ever do this again?
Right. Well, with the tinnitus, the ringing in the ears, I felt like that was kind of, at the beginning, that was harder to deal with. But as time went on, I found it was easier to manage than the hyperacusis, because the ringing would just literally drive you crazy, constantly, every day, all day. After a while, it literally just gets under your skin. That's an understatement, And the hyperacusis, the sensitivity to noise, that's really something that I'm still kind of grappling with. But like I said, the adjustment was really in the way that I went about creating. And I even tried to take a step back from music completely and say, hey, well, I'm gonna be a writer. I'm just gonna write poetry and short stories and not have a musical component to it at all. But I couldn't do it. Like, my mental suffered from not doing music, not being able to go to the studio, not being able to even listen to music, because it was an all or nothing kind of response. I cut music out of my life completely. And one day I woke up like, yo, this is not going to allow me to be functional. I have to still engage with music on some level. So I just started to be really careful,
Right. You were not all you.
I wasn't at all. I wasn't. And my friends could tell the difference. My family could tell the difference. And music it's very cathartic. It's really therapeutic for me. So not seeing your therapist for years and years, it just, it'll add up,
So what do you think it was that allowed you to push through, right? Where do you find that piece in you that says, okay, this is something I need. This is a part of me. And despite the challenges, despite the uphill battle, I have to find a way.
I'm not the most, it's kind of a contradiction. I'm not the most religious person. And yet I studied religion and philosophy in my free time as a teenager and a young adult. And I've always just felt like everybody has a purpose, no matter where that purpose comes from, no matter if you create that purpose yourself. I feel like everybody has a purpose, and it pays to be purpose driven. So really, some people are not blessed enough to know what it is that they're wanting to do in their 40s, 50s, 60s. Some people find that out late in life. I was lucky enough, I feel, to find that out very early, and I couldn't just cast that aside. And I also looked at it outside of myself, like, hey, this is actually a great story. Somebody who loved music so much, ended up getting injured by it, but persevered through that injury to continue making music. I felt like it could be inspirational, honestly. I really did.
I agree. That's why.
Yeah. And it was a personal thing too. Like, yo, I'm not going to let reality win over me. I'm gonna have my say. I'm gonna stake my claim. And it's like, if the universe is set up, is presenting these challenges to me in a way that's driving me out, I want to come further in,
No, you want to fight through.
For sure.
And I think that, I've had this conversation with a few people. I don't fall into the everything happens for a reason category. I do think that the things that do happen, I'm supposed to figure out what it is I'm supposed to do with it, right? And is there a lesson in it for me? Or and that isn't always an easy path, right? Sometimes those paths are incredibly challenging, right? And I looked up tinnitus, right? I was doing some research on it in advance of sitting down and talking to you about it. And it's 10 to 15% of the population experiences something like this. So it's quite rare, right? And having a ringing in your ear, I mean, that's having one of your senses disturbed on a permanent basis would not be easy, because we don't recognize how valuable something is to us until it is disrupted.
100%.
And then on top of that, this is the sense that you need the most, right? Because you're not just singing, so it's not just your vocal cords, right? It's the production element.
Right.
And there is, in listening to your music, right, there is so much intensity in the production elements. there's so much being woven into what it is you do. Let's talk a little bit about what drives what you produce.
Okay.
Because it feels to me you're not just writing a song, if you will, right? There's a testament to what's going on in the world. There is poetry in it. You're having your say.
All right.
What drives you when you are creating?
So just from a music production standpoint, because I rap and I produce. Not everybody who raps produces. I pride myself in being able to do both. And I always say that if you study an art form, say for instance, you were a painter, I don't think you should only study paintings. I think that you should kind of open yourself up and study architecture and let that feed into your painting. Just study other forms of art and different types of media, right? And the same thing is true for genres of music. So I primarily make hip hop music, but I'm incredibly inspired by the Beatles and Radiohead and Pink Floyd, those where the musicality is top notch. A lot of times in hip hop, you'll have the drums, you may have a couple sounds thrown on top. But for a long time, hip hop was really vocally driven. So the production would just be enough to sound good for somebody to rap on and somebody do their rap, and that's it. With me and after watching people like Outkast and Mr. West and different producers like Alchemist, I realized that the music can have a cinematic quality without the writing. And it is, in talking about both of those things, I want them both to be able to stand on their own. So I want you to be able to just listen to a beat I made and feel like a story's being told. But I also want you to be able to turn the beat off and just read the lyrics and have it be as impactful as if you had heard the entire song together. You know what I mean? So both of them have to live independent of each other, but at the end of the day, they're meant to go together.
That's what I found in listening and in watching, right? It's multi-layered.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite piece of artistic content that you have created?
My favorite piece of artistic content would be, there's a mixtape that I released in 2023 called Red Summer of Love. That is about 7 songs long, and it is a love letter to the city we live in, St. Louis. It's a love letter to St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis is one of the old cities of this country.
The area resembles a small ghost town.
St. Louis has a history also of black mythology and the devil.
True stories, false prophets, corporate angels put the city over toxins. Who mock nature, cutting water with deoxin. Tupac haters, cause our mamas are atomic. Been waiting in the asylum with open cases. Spreading the faith, converting doctors into patients. Peace of mind is currency I'm never saving. Creation is a crime God shouldn't get away with. I was born for the world to consume, so I held my breath and crawled back into the womb. Written in stone, the blood flowing through the runes. Planting my seed, the land feel like a tomb. What's the point of counting money if it's counterfeit? Mink drag when I walk through the apocalypse. I embrace all the pain and I promise this. Make the goat pay homage to the Baphomet. Dark minds, but you know we hid money till the vault shined. Cause the feds hid nukes by the fault lines. Footprint like a wound to the surface. Rain dripping all through the room, make us nervous. Bet I never go platinum. Tell the DJ the hood radioactive. It's a good day not to be home. I'ma turn crack rocks to philosopher's stones.
He is the best knower for his time. He is the mortal man at this time who is Allah. One who has mastered the lessons, who has mastered the knowledge.
This was clearly an assault on democracy.
How much your last name really worth? Tide water got my blood flowing in reverse. Seem like it's human nature to hate the earth. Feel like my only fate is to make it worse. Look, prevent a robbery and get the merch. On some daddy shit and I don't raise pacifists. Pain is a promise that I'm practicing. I need balance, half more to half masochist. But you know we hid money till the vault shine. Cause the feds hid nukes by the fault lines. Footprint like a wound to the surface. Rain dripping all through the room, make us nervous. Bet I never go platinum. Tell the DJ the hood radioactive. It's a good day not to be home. I'ma turn crack rocks to philosopher's stones.
there a lyric that stands out?
Oh man, we could be here all day. Yeah.
Are there a couple of lyrics?
I'm gonna give you a song that stands out to me. The entire tape revolves around a song called Hell or Hathaway. Hathaway is the neighborhood that I grew up in. So it's like, you want to go to Hell or you want to go to Hathaway? You know, I thought that was, kind of cute. And the song is really about the history of nuclear waste in North County, St. Louis. And I stumbled across that. There's a book called The Broken Heart of America that it's basically the history of St. Louis from Lewis and Clark to Michael Brown. And I read that, and it's one of the greatest books I've ever read. The writing is incredible, but I'm reading about streets that I walk down. I'm reading about neighborhoods I slept in and the history behind them, history that predates my grandmother, and I just found such an inspiring joy in it. I'm like, I have to be able to use this as a muse,
And what's really interesting is as I was listening to the music, I knew that you were talking about the nuclear waste in North County. I immediately said it to my fiance, to James. I said, I know exactly what he's talking about. And that's why it struck me that it was you having a say about your world. It isn't just you writing about a summer's day when you were a child, right? Like it's a testament to what you think about the world we're living in right now.
For sure. I don't think I ever really write raps just for the sake of writing raps. At first, I started writing raps when I was 12. And at first it began as a way for me to express the different things I was learning, because I was learning about different religions. I was learning about different ways of viewing the world, philosophy and history. And I was writing poetry. I was writing short stories. I fell in love with Tupac Shakur. It was like the 10th anniversary of his pass in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember there was another rapper. He was reflecting on Tupac. And he said, Tupac spit pain rap. He didn't just rap to rap. He was talking about things that he was going through, things that people around him was going through. And I wanted to kind of follow suit in that. And we had a poetry assignment. I ended up writing like 12 poems. And the next week, my English teacher, she was talking to like some other classmates. And I was like, you see him? You guys should try to sit down and see if he can teach you and help you write just for this assignment, because that's a real poet. And I was just flattered. I'm like 13 years old, and she really put that battery in my back to pursue it. But after a while, like I told you, I started writing to express what I was learning. After a while, I just fell in love with the art of crafting rap verses. And I didn't see it as a difference from crafting a sonnet at all. It was just a different context. And I think part of my mission and part of why I write the way I do is I want people to, and they probably see it more now, but I want people to identify hip hop writing as a form of literature. It's not just a form of music. Hip hop is a form of music as well, but we're the most rhythmically driven form of music. We don't really have a lot of melody unless you're talking about the stuff the kids is doing now. But true MCing was rhythm and poetry over music, and I want people to see Rakim the same way they see Edgar Allan Poe,
I love that. What a beautiful mission.
Yeah. And I think other people have that same mission. And like there are rappers who have won the Pulitzer Prize. So the world has come to accept hip hop on the terms that I would like for it to accept hip hop on. But I feel like the people within the culture of hip hop itself don't see hip hop as a form of poetry like they should. Some people do, but not everybody.
I think it's moving in that direction. But I think that when we talk about that as a culture, I feel as though music and writing has long been a form of cultural expression of what is happening.
For sure.
Throughout history, right? Like I think that we can go back through history and look at the music and the rhythm and the songs to tell us what was happening.
Yes, always.
At any given time, right? And far more so than in other cultures.
Absolutely.
That's so beautiful. And this is where I love to learn, right? I love looking at things through a different lens. You and I have talked about something before, and I'm wondering where you are on this right now. Writer's block.
Yes.
Where are you right now?
I think I'm coming out of it. I really do. I actually went to the studio yesterday.
Okay.
I work with 2 different engineers. One of them is actually a bandmate of mine, Cecil G. Calloway. He stays out where we stay in O'Fallon. But then I have another engineer in Maryland Heights, and his studio I love going to his studio. I love being around him because he works in different types of media. He works with visual aesthetic, and he's really good with the computer, and he wants to put together a storyboard for the album and make some animated stuff. So that was really good and validating to have somebody else see my work and want to expand on it. But he has a lot of ideas coming up for the future for us, and I'm very excited about that. But in getting that feedback, it made me kind of realize writer's block is really a self block, and kind of get out your own way. And that's why I said earlier, it's important to not care about what your family or your friends will think about the stuff you're creating. Because some of the stuff I write, my mom has no ideas on my mind. Like you were saying, you listen to the tape and it's like, this is an entirely different side of you, because it's a side that's really only reserved for the studio and for the notepad,
But it's interesting though, because I recognized you in the literature piece of it. Right. I recognize you in the wisdom of it. Some of the verbiage is a little heftier than, and by heftier, I mean
vulgar.
Yeah. A little more vulgar than I'm used to in the conversations you and I have, because you are a quintessential gentleman.
Thank you. I try.
Well, you are raising children and raising daughters, and every side of you that I've ever known, experienced as a social worker too, right? A lot of the conversations we've had have revolved around a work that you and I have both done. And so there's just this piece, but I think that there is heart in what you're expressing, and sometimes vulgarities add that additional element for emphasis.
Right. For sure.
So there's well placed, right? But it was just interesting to hear it, because I thought this is a side to you that I hadn't.
One thing I'm big on, so in hip hop culture, especially today, you have an aversion to what people refer to as the lyrical, miracle, spiritual rapper. People who rap using a bunch of syllables, and they may rap fast and are trying to squeeze a bunch of words into one bar. And it just comes off like they're trying to impress you for how good they can rap. Mm-hmm. I never want to come off like that.
Okay.
So what I choose to do is, one of my favorite rappers is Pimp C. Pimp C he didn't care about metaphors. He didn't really care about similes. He didn't care about being the best rapper ever. Pimp C wanted to just say what was on his mind, get it off his chest. However you took it was however you took it. And that's a very hip hop attitude. And I have to include that in my recipe. I have to. And a lot of times I'm trying to meet people where they are. A lot of people today don't really listen to the MCs of old. They don't really listen to wordy rappers. So I'm trying to appeal to the people who may overlook a Nas, the people who may overlook a J. Cole or Kendrick Lamar. And I'm trying to get to the people who listen to artists who don't have a lot of substance, but what they can relate to is the way that I'm speaking. They can relate to the flow of the words,
Isn't it important that having that authentic you, right? When you get to the you that isn't censoring for anyone, if it's 27 people or 2,700 or eventually 27,000, that's the core of the people you want.
Absolutely.
Because they're your people, mm-hmm. right? I'd rather be my authentic self with those people and have fewer of them, because they're going to match my energy.
Right.
Right. And I think that writer's block for me has always come when I'm not being that version of myself.
Right.
When I'm far more worried about what the perfect outside looks like than I am about what's real.
Right.
And getting back to what's real, how do you find you again when you realize that the mask is keeping you in rather than keeping everyone else out?
Well, honestly, I feel a lot more open to being extrovert when I have the mask on. Because like I said, I'm not in the role of my government name. I'm in this specific role. And when you're in this specific role, I feel like I've been with it so long, I kind of just know what to do. It's like the flow state. You know, you don't want to overthink the task. You want to just become the task. And so that's what the mask kind of signals for me, you know, just become the task that you're doing. But in terms of writer's block and subject matter, I was listening to a director on YouTube the other day, and they were saying when they were in a state of depression, they didn't know what to write. They wrote about depression, but they didn't write about it in a way that was on the nose. They made a metaphor for it. It's like, yeah, well, I feel stuck in life. I don't want to write about somebody that's stuck in life. Instead, I'm going to write about a kid who just received a gifted statue from his grandmother, and the statue can talk but can't move. You know, like that could be a metaphor for someone being stuck in life. You can go horror with it. You can go comedy, you know, whatever you think the context is to dress it up. But the foundation of that metaphor is rooted in something that you may experience every day, even though it seems absurd or fantastical. You know, there's a way to reconcile the two.
How do you define hope?
How do I define hope? Hope, I would define as perseverance, almost irrational perseverance in the face of surmounting challenges.
Do you consider yourself a hopeful person?
I just told my wife last night after speaking to you and going to the studio, I was like, yo, I feel really hopeful because there's opportunity, you know, and opportunity behind opportunity is people. And the biggest thing about like the stuff that holds a lot of people back, depression, anxiety, self-doubt, all of those things feed off of your self-isolation. So if you want to kind of get out of that feeling, that funk, you have to be around other people. And if you're around the right people, when you present yourself with the right energy, people lead to opportunities. Opportunities lead to goals coming true, you know?
You said something to me one time that I loved so much. You told me that you were it. Like you are exactly who you want to be. Like you are no doubt in your mind that you will achieve the things you want to achieve.
For sure.
That sounds like a very special kind of hope. Not hope, but confidence, of self-assuredness. Where does that come from?
Man, it really just comes from my worldview. I don't do a lot of code switching. Like the way I talk to you is the way I talk to my kids, the way I talk to my supervisor, the way I talk to friends I grew up with. I present myself the same way everywhere I go. But I think that's because I know how to tap into whatever side is needed at any given point without seeming like I'm being a chameleon, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
You know, and my confidence comes from the fact that I'm supremely confident in my abilities and my taste level and things like that. I'm not always confident in the world to realize it though. So even with that confidence, you know, I still get into a funk of like, yo, where's the disconnect happening? How can I find a way to make my message more palatable or find the right people for this message? That may get me in my head, but I'm never in my head saying, what's wrong with me? You know, not in a self-defeating way. There's always room for improvement, but I never think I have to change anything. I just have to keep progressing, you know?
I love that. If I was to put you on a platform in front of all the right people, what would you tell them to motivate them, to give them that little bit of oof to believe in themselves the way you believe in you?
I would say everybody is born with the ability to determine what their purpose is and follow through with what they think their purpose is. Whether or not you believe that purpose comes from God or it comes from yourself or whatever your worldview is, as human beings, we've been blessed with critical thinking. We've been blessed with the ability to problem solve. We've been blessed with the ability to self-reflect. And I think once you put those three things together in a little silence, you will be able to determine which way you want your ship to sail.
I love that. And a little bit of silence. Where can our viewers, our listeners find you?
Find me on Instagram at the moment. You know, I'm not too big on social media. I know it's a necessary evil. So I'm starting with Instagram because it's been the least problematic for me.
Mm-hmm.
So my Instagram handle is @LittleJr833. So that's spelled LittleJr833. No spaces anywhere. You can find me on Instagram. I have music on YouTube underneath the same name, youtube.com/LittleJr833. And I'm actually working on a website called farsideradio.net. We're trying to get that back up and running and have some new episodes on there, new content, pictures, music videos, and everything else. I'm really trying to make that like my home hub.
Okay. That's really exciting. Any last bits of wisdom that you'd like to share with everyone? I'm so grateful you've been here with me.
Oh, thank you for having me. First of all, this is the first time that I've really gotten to express the stories and concerns and the inspirations that I have. So I really appreciate you doing this. I would just say, hey, if there's always a way to turn tragedy into a tool, no matter how tragic it is, there's always a way up. There's always a way forward.
I'm so grateful for you. Little Junior, Oliver, the way I know you, I hope people will go and listen to your music because it is inspiring, and it's inspiring on so many levels. Even if the genre of music people don't listen to is traditionally hip hop, the layers of what you do, it is beautiful and inspiring. And I hope people will take your words to heart. Thank you guys so much for spending time with us today. And I hope that we met you where you are today and that you received some of the motivation and inspiration and some of Oliver's courage today and some of his self-confidence, and that you will take that and you will send it on to someone else you know who needs some of that very same light and inspiration, and that you will take good care of yourself between now and our next episode, and you will come back and visit with us. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Naturally, it's important to thank the people who support and sponsor the podcast. This episode is supported by Chris Dully, a trusted criminal defense attorney and friend of mine here in St. Louis, who believes in second chances and solid representation. Whether you're facing a DWI, felony, or traffic issue, Chris handles your case personally, with clarity, compassion, and over 15 years of experience. When things feel uncertain, it helps to have someone steady in your corner. Call 314-384-4000 or 314-DUI-HELP, or you can visit dullylawfirm.com to schedule your free consultation.